Start now. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you all to the second session of the FICCI Indian Angel Network Startup Investment Series. Thank you so much for joining in today. Last month, we had Ms. Padmaja Ruparel, President of the Indian Angel Network, who spoke about various aspects of angel investing. And continuing with that trend, today it is our honor to have Mr. Naganand Doraswamy, Managing Partner, Ideaspring Capital, and a member of FICCI Startup Committee with us today, and he'll be speaking on early customers and why are they so important for startups. Mr. Naganand is a serial entrepreneur turned investor. After exiting his startup, he founded Ideaspring Capital to fund and actively support product innovation startups. He enjoys working with entrepreneurs who have the vision and passion to build products for the global markets. Mr. Naganand is well networked and respected in the startup ecosystem, and he actively participates in various organizations focusing on entrepreneurship and innovation. And it is our honor to have him with us today. So over to you, Mr. Naganand. And we'll be having 30 minutes of talk by Mr. Naganand, and then we will take question and answers. In case we have already received a few questions, and in case you have any questions today, you can post it in the live chat box on YouTube, and we'll take them one by one. So over to you, Mr. Naganand.
Thanks for the very nice introduction, and you have been very generous in your introduction, IT, and I appreciate it. And welcome everybody, and thanks for dialing in or logging in to watch this session. And hopefully at the end of 1 hour, we all will have a little bit more wisdom on our side, and would love to share my knowledge of customers, why they're important, specifically focusing on early stage customers today. I don't like monologues, and it's very hard to gauge how things are going when you're talking in a session like this. So what I'll do is I'll keep my talk to as minimal as possible, where I can give you some key inputs on early stage customers, but really looking forward to some interesting questions where we can get into deeper details of early stage customers and its importance, right? So when I was talking to IT, she said Padmaja had covered on the initial angel investment, and I thought one of the best things to, rather than focusing on Series A and Series B, which will be another topic which we can cover as part of the series, I thought what I'll do is what happens post building the product, because to me that is one of the key critical phases of the company, as to how will you now get the first set of customers, what are the difficulties in it, and how do you handle them, manage them, how do you learn from them, and so on and so forth. I thought that will be a topic of very great importance, and hence decided with IT that we'll focus on that topic today. And that's what we will talk. I'll talk for the next half an hour, and then or 20 minutes as the case may be, and then have more question and answers and keep the session lively that way. So like we all know, customer is there all the way, right? You know, when you start thinking about an idea, you know, you are your own customer. Many times what has happened to people is they have experienced the problem, and they have seen that something is not working, and they hence believe that addressing that particular problem is a good thing to do, right? So hence you are your own customer in that respect. But then post that, you talk to a few more people, right? You know, who are prospective customers. At that time, they're still not your customers, but you start brainstorming your idea to say, hey, you know, I'm thinking about this, does it make sense, so on and so forth. And if you hence start to believe, and after you've spoken to a few people, whether they're enterprises or they are end customers, then you start to generate belief in your idea, saying, yeah, looks like there is some depth behind what I'm thinking. There is some opportunity behind what I'm thinking. So I should really go and develop something to basically solve this problem, right? So post doing that, then you raise money, like what Pachmana said. You go talk to a few people, and you know, you get some people excited about your idea, and so on and so forth. And you know, you raise money, and then when you start developing the product, you will keep talking, you'll keep engaged with the customers, because you really cannot develop anything in vacuum. You know, you may believe anything, you may think it is very important, but truly, you know, when the rubber meets the road is when you hit the market. And hence you typically always you are engaged with customers even during product development phase, just to understand the vagaries of various nuances, that, you know, the problem you're solving, the market, the geography, and there's so many variables, it is not even funny. But you will always go to a core set of guys whom you will engage with to get meaningful feedback even during your product build phase. And once you have that, then you enter the beta phase, right? Whether it is an enterprise sale or whether it is a customer sale, you got to have beta customers who will test the product initially, who will validate your thesis, who will say, yeah, you are solving the right problem, yeah, you are building a product that is usable, so on and so forth. And this set of beta customers are extremely critical, and they are very, very integral part of you developing a right product for the market. And they will hence guide you in your product development, because you have gotten most of the product right during your product development phase, but your beta customers are really who will kind of give the finishing touches to your product. And if there is something really, really missing, you have to be open in adding those capabilities or benefits or features into the product, and you do that. Next comes the really, really key part of any company is, how do you now translate? You have a beta, you have built the product, you have interacted with enough prospective customers, but what next? The next phase is what I believe is very, very critical, because getting anybody to pay for anything is very, very hard, and we all know that. Everybody will say, yeah, this is great, this is cool, this is awesome, blah blah blah. But when you say, all right, you like it so much, here how much it costs, please subscribe, please pay for it, then suddenly there is silence. There's eerie silence. And we have seen this in all our companies, you know again and again and again, right? So why do people hesitate to pay for something, right? More so in the enterprise play as opposed to the consumers place, right? I'm a fund focused on enterprises, so I think I am more biased towards enterprises in this talk, but I'll try and include consumers as well as much as I can, because I typically do B2B deals, and B2C is something I don't do a whole lot because of various reasons. But I will try and also give you some flavor of B2C whenever I'm talking. And particularly in enterprises, if you have to write a check, even a single rupee, it is not the quantum of the money that matters, but it is the process that you have to go through in ensuring in writing the check, right? You have to become a vendor, you have to go through your finance, you have to go through your IT. Then more than anything else, in beta, you're not owning up anything. You're just doing in your own environment. But once you actually write a check, then it is being deployed in the enterprise. And when I say, I'm talking about a small to mid enterprise, because startups typically really cannot sell to large enterprises because of the nature of the beast there. You really, really don't want to go sell to large enterprises at the beginning. You have to hence pick small to mid enterprises. But even there, it is very hard, because there are multiple questions that you'll be asked. Why should I pay? What is so special about your product that I have to pay? What is the value that you're bringing to me or to my team or to my group or to my company, right? And how do I justify internally for what I'm paying? It can be even $10, but people will ask the question, why should I pay $10 every month? Right? That's the thing. And if I were to bring in this product and deploy it, what is the training required? How will it interact with other systems that is already there in the enterprise, and so on and so forth, right? And more, and finally, okay, this is my environment. I do AWS, or I do Azure, I'm on Google Cloud, or I have my own internal deployment capability. So how are these? How is it going to work in all these things? So when you try and do the first sale, it is like humongous amount of questions, great amount of resistance, and most importantly, there is no trust in your company, in your company. Not that your product is not good, not that you are a person that cannot be trusted, but inherently everything, any sale happens because of trust. And when you are trying to get the first few customers, there is really nobody to give you a testimonial. There is really nobody to say, this product is working well, this product has enhanced my productivity, product has, right, increased my sales in the bottom line, whatever it is. But there's really, really no one who can validate or give you a testimonial to say these things. And people really have to buy based on some factors. It's either the problem is extremely intensely severe, which is normally not the case in their company, that they're willing to risk everything, or it is, it's something really new that, there's an innovator or a very early adopter who is willing to give it a shot. But all these things are you cannot build a company based on these things. So typically what happens when you hence are trying to build, they're trying to get the first set of customers, we always call it will be a founder-led sale. right? The first few customers, you will never hire a salesperson to get your first few customers, because a sales guy doesn't even know what to sell, or how to position the product. The product doesn't have any testimonials, so it's really impossible for a salesperson to hire a sales team to start. You get the first few sales for the company. So in all our companies, what we have done hence is it is always driven by the founder, or the founding team, right? If not the founding team, not the founder, one of the founding team. So you really have to reach out to people in your own network, or somebody who is introduced to you who knows very well, where there is a trust factor already established, right? Because when people look at your product, when people try out your product, they also know that they are talking to somebody they can trust. They're talking to somebody who delivers good quality products. They're talking to somebody who will react very fast, and so on and so forth. So either hence these will become your beta customers, who will now translate to your first paying customer, or it will be a few set of people that you have in your network, or somebody introduce your network, whom you'll work with, right? And then you'll bend head over heels to get these guys to deploy it, use it, and give feedback, and then work with them to understand what their problems are, how easy it was from a user experience, whether it is solving the problem that you set out to solve for them, so on and so forth. And we typically call these customers the teaching customers. The reason we call them the teaching customers is because they really handhold you in the first phase of your onboarding customers, right? Because you should not take a whole lot of customers during this phase of your company. The first month or the first 2 to 3 weeks, just focus on a very small set of customers whom you trust, who trust you, and learn from them as to what their experiences were across multiple different segments: installation, deployment, usage, outcome, interfaces with their existing system. So really take time to understand what it is when you are getting this first 1 to 5 teaching customers in case of enterprises. And if you are deploying a B2C product, really focus on one small area in a geography. Like, for example, I'm from Bangalore. I will not even try anything in Bangalore, right? I will try in one locality in Bangalore to see what the user experience of using something is, because you really don't know all the various ways a product can fail, all the various ways a product is not satisfying what a customer wants. So you really want to have a small set of paying customers who will guide you, who will work with you to understand and improve and better your product, right? And once you do that, you have at least a bunch of guys who can give you some reference. It's still not good enough to make to start feeling very good about what you have done in terms of sales, but at least you know that this product is useful, that this product is working in the field. You have a few set of guys who can give you testimonials, and then you get to the next phase of your early customer traction, wherein you are now going to say, how is my product positioned, right? So first 5 customers are good, but then positioning of the product, what is the story you're telling to the next set of customers? Is it flying? Is it making sense? And this is very important aspect of the early customer traction, because without right positioning, it is very hard to kind of scale the next to the next set of customers. When I say positioning of the product, what problem you think it is solving, which department in the company they should be deployed in. You might start with sales, but suddenly realize that typically it doesn't happen, that it is more useful for the marketing guy. So then you will position to the marketing guy rather than the sales guy. You try and find out who in the company is the right audience for this product for you to pitch, and what is the story you're going to tell them, why is it useful for them, and how is it solving a problem that it is very painful for them, right? So hence in the next phase of the next set of customers, you try and get some idea about positioning of the product, who you sell to, why you're selling them to, and so on and so forth. And once you get that, then you move to the next phase wherein you are trying to get the messaging right. When you get the messaging right, it is basically trying to tell people what messages really clicked into their mind. Is it cost saving message that is going to click in their mind? Is it a productivity improvement that is sticking to their mind? If for example, if you're building a storage product, is the fact that they have to take backups is the problem, is the fact that they have to recover from a disaster is the problem, it is the fact that they have to have granular extraction of data is it a problem. So I think you really at that point you have to understand what is the messaging you want to use, and then amplify that messaging, right? Like for example, when you're selling to consumers, same thing like Baiju's. If you take example of Baidu, what is the messaging they're using? You're saying, look, we'll give you a fabulous content and access to personalized a teacher, right? So that's the messaging that really worked for them. But they wouldn't have gotten it day one. They would have gotten it over a period of time. So once you get a set of teaching customers, and then you go and get the positioning right of the product, then you get the messaging right. And it is post that you really are in a position where you can say, all right, now if I'm able to hire a sales team, I can tell them, look, this is the messaging you take, this is the playbook you take, this is how you call people, and the marketing department will now start generating leads and so on and so forth. And you can start really scaling, whether it's inbound, outbound, channel. There are multiple different things you can do post this, right? So then you can really focus on your marketing and sales. But the first phase of the company of getting your first 0 to 25 customers, it is extremely critical that the founder is driving this, right? And I can't stress more in my own experience as to founder of the founding team, because they have built the product. And typically we have seen no one can sell better than the founder, right? Of course, we are assuming that the founder has the sales capability, because there are two classes of founders. One who has the sales mentality, CEO who is able to talk to customers, and you have another VP of Eng or CTO who is more technology driven. So you need to pick somebody in your own team who has this ability to talk to people, to convince people, and you have another founder of the founding team who are building the product. So you got to identify your strengths, but really the first 25 customers need to be driven by the founder or one of the key people in the founding team. And then iron out, because nobody, I've never seen any product that is built right the first day, right? You go through a phase for sure, wherein there will be changes, there will be pivots, there will be new ideas that come that you have to incorporate. You go to the market thinking this feature is good, that feature is good, but the customer will ask something else, and you have to make changes. So in the first 25 customers, you are going to make all these changes to the product, and you're going to stay on top of it. You're going to get the product right. You're going to get the positioning right. You're going to get the messaging right. And it's only post that is when you can really scale. So this is what I have seen happen, and this is what we do with most of our startups, whether it is B2B or B2C, right? You got to get these things right. And then why do I say, interacting with customers is in the early stage is very important. And the reason I'm saying, like I said before, you really have built a product, but it's only when people start paying you and you start deploying, you really start to see, am I solving the right pain point? I set out to solve this particular problem. Is it still true? Am I still doing it, or the market has moved on? Do I have to define my product? Do I have to pivot a little bit? So you have to make sure that you understand that. And the next one is the customer is able to use the product intuitively, right? Is the user experience good? And and that is when, hence it is very important to really work with a few set of customers and get that information. And it will be amazing every time you go deploy in a new environment, you learn something new, right? Because there is something unexpected that's going to happen, given 100% given that when you deploy a new product in a new environment, something new you'll discover. So you need to make sure that in the initial set of customers, you have enough and more examples of various environments that would ensure that you can work in different kinds of environment. And very rarely have I seen a product which has been developed right the first time. There's invariably, when you work with 15 to 20 customers, new set of requirements come, and hence product management becomes important at that time in categorizing which features should we implement now, which features you should say, all right, it's coming down later, start using my product. And those decisions has to be made at that time. And like I said before, both positioning and messaging, these are very, very key as you start to scale the company. Getting the first 25 customers is great. And the question is, during this phase of working with 25 customers, what is that you can do to make sure that post this phase, the company is well positioned for scale, right? Because you cannot keep on taking few customers at a time. Beyond a particular point, you really need to start growing. When I say start growing, get the sales team, get the marketing team. But before that, you have to be very clear that you've gotten your positioning right and you've gotten the messaging right. And this is where we call the term that is used product market fit or market product fit, whichever way you want to look at it. You want to make sure that with these 25 customers, you've gotten your product market fit, right? In the sense that which segment you're going to go after, which person you're going to sell to, what is the story you're going to tell them, how much they're going to pay for you, and what is the messaging you're giving to them so that they get attracted, that they can actually buy your product, right? So hence I'm saying that I can't stress more in saying, get the right set of early customers, work with them very closely, get them from your network, learn as much as you can before you start to scale. And why am I saying all these things? Because see, to me, yeah, there's always a bunch of customers that are there. There's always a problem to be solved. And you can always come up with a solution, right? But the scale is what that matters. If there are only 5 customers for a problem you're trying to solve, it doesn't matter how good a solution, it's a waste, right? And similarly, if there are lots of customers, but you choose a wrong problem to solve, you're hosed the game. And if you have a good set of customers and a large problem, but your solution sucks, you're not going to get a market. So you have to get all these things right before you actually hit the market, right? And when I say hit the market, in terms of scale, in terms of problem, in terms of positioning, and in terms of the usability of the solution, right? So I think all these things will become very, very important. And one thing I will always say is, it is like, you have to build trust. Without trust, nothing moves. And it's amazing. Like in our case, we have seen, we have a whole bunch of customers in India, right? And the product is working great, so on and so forth. Now suddenly we say, all right, now let's go to the US market. In spite of having the best of the best names in India, right? And you got like big banks as customers in India. When you go to the US and when you try to sell in the US market, the first question they ask is, do you have any customers in the US, right? So the trust doesn't even exist that this product is working in India, it is working great. That, in order for you to make a sale, the first question that comes is, do you have any customers in the US? So hence, when you start selling in a new market, you're starting almost from ground zero, right? Of course, if you have a great market in India, it'll always help you. But having a great market in India doesn't guarantee anything in the US, because they say, no, I want to see the same level of trust that is established in the US. So you again, hence you're back to square one, getting the first 5-10 customers in the US, understanding the messaging, understanding everything to say, how do I scale in a different geography, right? So, that is why building the trust becomes extremely critical. And the other thing is, the initial set of customers will not only help you build the trust, they also give you a reality check of the market, right? If you're able to get 20-25 customers paying for you, you get a certain amount of confidence that there is a story behind it, right? So this is what happens when you go from seed to Series A, wherein you're saying you are already making, say, 500K revenue, and in getting 500K revenue, you have signed up 20-25 customers. The next round of investor will get the confidence that 20-25 customers are not fools to pay money to buy something. So they invariably trust that, yeah, since 20-25 people are paying for this product, there is something in this product, and hence they get enthused to even dig deeper, right? So even to for the next follow-on rounds of funding, these set of initial customers become very, very critical in defining your journey, in defining your path, and in defining where you want to go. And finally, I always believe market humbles you, right? It doesn't matter how smart you think you are, unless you're Steve Jobs or something, where you'll say, I will define the market because I know what you guys don't know what you want. But predominantly in 99.999% of the cases, market, we all need to really look at what the market is, because to me, market always humbles you. And the initial set of customers will absolutely help you in avoiding costly mistakes, right? Mistakes do happen, and I don't think there's any startup that is built where they can say, no, I didn't make any mistakes. There's like tons and tons of mistakes that we make, tons and tons of mistakes we make in our decisions, in our products, so on and so forth. But you cannot keep on making those mistakes, right? And that is what these initial set of customers do. They kind of help you in converging with your product messaging and on all aspects of the product, from development to sales to marketing to everything. And they will help you add the capabilities and features that are required for the market. And hence, once you start and once you do those things properly, they're basically inherently helping you in making sure that there are no costly mistakes that you're making once you start to scale, right? Once you build your sales team, you'll make other kinds of mistakes. At least you know that you have a product market fit, you have a sellable product, you have a product that has the right story, and now you go scale, right? So I think those are the set of things that I would say are critical in terms of approaching the initial set of customers. And be very careful in who you pick as the initial set. There should be a representative of the market that you want to sell into, but there should be someone you should know who will help you, because they are your friends, they are your guide in the early stage process. And once you have them in your bucket, and once they help you, they will not only help you build the right story, pay you money, get your initial set of revenues. They will be the one who will be championing your product in their own network, right? So because then you build the network effect and you take it from there. So this is what I had to say about why it is very, very important to have the initial set of customers. And now I'll open it for questions, because otherwise it will become too long a monologue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naganand. And, we see the comments, and I think your presentation is very well received by the audience. And some of the questions that are coming in, you already touched upon them, but we'll still take them if you could put some additional light on that.
Sure.
Yeah, so the first question, first two questions rather, they're coming in quite interrelated. So Mr. Vikram, he's asking, he would like to know about customer discovery and validation. And another related question, which is quite similar, is how do we get that first customer?
Yeah, so customer discovery, I think it should not be a surprise, right, Vikram? So the way I see it is, like I said in my very first slide, right, it's a journey. You're not coming up with something that has not got anything. Before you build a product, you should have some idea as to who your customers are, why are they going to buy this product, what is the problem you're trying to solve to them. So I think even before you build a product, I think those discovery needs to happen. And they're not your customers yet, but they are prospective customers. So I think it's a journey that you go through. And even when you're building your product, you should stay in close touch with your prospective customers, right? You're not going to build anything in vacuum. So I always advise that one of the key founding team members always engages with the market. There is a southbound team. Basically, when I say a southbound team, the engineering team that is building the product. And there's a northbound team that is interacting with prospective customers, interacting with the competitors, seeing what's happening. That is feeding this intelligence into the team that is building the product. So you're bringing the right product to the market, and you already have established potential relationships of people who are going to use your product, right, as soon as it comes out. So hence the discovery is an ongoing process. I don't think it's a one-time process. It's an ongoing process. Even when you have a certain amount of customers, you have to discover who are the new set of customers you can sell to. So that's an ongoing process, right? And then getting your first customers, like I said, you always need to, especially in a B2B case, you have to dig into your own network. It is very, very hard to do a cold call or knock on somebody's door that you don't know and try and pray that they'll install your product. You have to do a lot of work to basically ensure that you are going to get them to install your product. If it is a B2C, and I think it's a little bit of a more complicated scenario, right? For example, I was, you really go to malls, you go to other places, and you go tell people use this product, and this is why you have to use it, or use Facebook or other capabilities to attract people in a particular domain, in a particular region. And that's why I said, if it's a B2C, you really have to contain yourself to a small area, region, where you always test the market first, right? Because otherwise your reachability becomes an issue. How the hell will you go reach all entire Bangalore for something? It's not even possible to reach entire Bangalore. You start with, say, Jayanagar, and then go from one area to 3 areas to 10 areas, and then expand to Bangalore, right? So I think because you have to spend a lot on marketing in that B2C, the problem with B2C is a lot of money needs to be spent on marketing. And how intelligent can you get to get those initial set of customers with minimal investment, because you don't have a whole lot of money to spend, is an issue that needs to be solved. And I hope that answers your question.
Right, thanks, Mr. Naganand. The next question is coming in from Mr. Sparsh Oberoi. He's representing StanShare, a sharing platform in the wellness domain. And his question is that in case of this pandemic era, they had to change course twice and they have got a few customers but are finding it tough to scale further. So any advice for startups in the very current COVID situation?
Yeah, I mean, see, I thought wellness space there should be market because people are at home and they should find it attractive to do something that will keep them healthy and so on and so forth. But there are certain segments you really hit hard, right? Travel, hospitality, and those are brutally affected. And I don't know what to say. It's just that people cannot go out. There's nothing you can do about it. But things like healthcare, education, wellness, I think those are the segments that I thought should do well from a consumer perspective. Of course, enterprises are doing still need the platforms because enterprises are still operational. But from a consumer perspective, I think you need to see what your competition is doing and what your unique proposition is and how do you reach out to your set of customers. But like I said, you'll always get a few set of customers in B2C space. But really the question is, how do you keep them engaged? How do you expand that base? How do you expand not only geography but other countries and so on and so forth? But I don't have a ready-made answer to your question because it's a question that many startups face. But I really think if you are in that position, you really need to see what your differentiator is and what is the key problem you're solving, and hence how do you get to those set of people who are the right audience for you. I think the biggest problem in B2C that I see is reachability, right? Humongous amount of money needs to be spent in marketing, and that is not easy, right? And that's why I don't fund B2C, because I'm a small fund and I want to stay a small fund. And the approaches for B2B and B2C are completely different. There is a night and day, because the way B2C companies are built, they're operationally intensive in the beginning and they become IP intensive later, whereas B2B are IP intensive in the beginning and operationally intensive later, right? So it's like a complete flip. So hence, operationally intensive companies require a lot more money in the initial stages. So, you need to make sure that you have enough cash in the bank for you to try out various strategies, because without spending money, it is very hard to build a good customer base in B2C.
Right. So the next question is, will some of the things that you spoke about today, customer acquisition and retaining those customers, will this apply? Dipendu is asking, will this apply if my users are not my customers?
So you're talking about B2B2C kind of a scenario, even if say users are not your customers. The only time that I would see where your users are not your direct customers are B2B2C. But even in those cases, you have to know who your end user is. If you don't understand your end user, whether you're selling it to them or not directly, I think you're in trouble. So to me, you always need to understand who your end user is and how they use your product, why it is beneficial to them. Because if you don't spend time analyzing and understanding that, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. So I would strongly recommend that whatever it is, have a good deep understanding of whatever the end user of your product is doing with your product, how they use it, why is it useful for them, and always keep a pulse on it. Very important.
Right, thanks. And the next question is from Satish Pathak, and he's asking if we have customer interest, but it needs certain product certification, demanding capex, cost of certification. In that case, how do we move ahead?
Yeah, so that is why I said finding the initial set of customers becomes very important. Like, for example, if you sell to an enterprise, I have a few startups in my own portfolio where, as they started going up in the chain, selling to enterprises, they had to figure out if they had ISO 27001 certification and this and that, and then as soon as you try and sell to them, there's a laundry list of questions that come. Their IT questionnaire is 10 pages long. So I think in the initial stages, don't even bother selling to those people, right? Pick customers who you can sell to, who are nimble, who say, all right, you're doing on Amazon, as long as Amazon gives you a certain level of security, a certain level of governance, we are happy with it. So pick those customers where you can hence get the initial traction. And if you try and sell to an enterprise, you're in trouble. The sales cycle is 9 months. The requirements are very high. You'll not be able to satisfy them. You don't have the money. Their demands are too high, and they'll just subsume you, and then you'll not go anywhere. So pick customers who are willing to deploy what you have without asking too many questions, and that is very, very, very critical.
Right.
Otherwise, you're in an endless loop.
Right, thanks. The next question is from Shailesh, and he's saying that they have a Go Green conceptual company and who wants to replace one-time plastics with natural fibers. It's a B2C and B2B product. How do we pitch with investors where there is no proof of green products?
See, in the greenfield projects or it's always hard. See, the deal is as follows. Investors don't need proof. Investors need promise, right? Investors need the fact that there's a huge market for this. And, most of the times when an investor invests in something, there is, many times there's no proof of anything, right? But if you are able to convince about an investor about the vision you have, about the market you have, and the capability you bring to the table to execute and gain that market, that's all that matters. So I would say, do not worry too much about the proof and other things, but worry about making sure that you're selling the right vision with the right product, with the right capability to execute. And
Right.
invest in, because investors want to make money, right? At the end of the day, investors want to make money, and they make money when the company is able to have good sales, right? So as long as you can convince somebody that there's a good market, then do it. And that's number one. And number two, I always say, try and go to investors who know that area well. You come to me and try to sell building material, I will not know anything about it, and I'll be honest and say, look, I have zero idea in this business, so in this area, so I'm not willing to spend time to research more about this. Hence, I'm not the right investor for you, and I'll say that right away. So I think hence you also need to pick investors who understand that domain or interested in investing in that domain, because before any investors invest any money, they will do a lot of reading, a lot of research, and they need to understand the market you're selling into. Otherwise, they're not a good investor.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Naganand. The next question is, how do we negotiate with early customers since we don't have an upper hand there?
See, I think you really don't. You will give deep discounts for the first set of customers, right? Because you need to understand that they are taking a huge risk in getting you on board, right? So I think give them deep discounts and make sure that they use the product. What is most important in the first 5, 10, 15 customers is how well are they using your product, how good a feedback they're giving you, and how are they helping you in positioning, because they are teaching you. Remember, they are also spending a lot of time with you. So I don't think you should be overly concerned about the money you're making. And I'm not saying give it for free. Don't give anything for free. But suppose say you want to sell your product X. For the first few customers, you say, look, I will give you deep discounts, or first quarter it is free, or I will give it to you at 0.5x. No, don't price your product low, but you say product price is this, but since you are my early customer, I'm going to give you deep discount. So don't worry too much about getting your pricing right. Your idea is not get your pricing right. Your idea is to get the product positioning right, product messaging right, and make sure that people are using your product. So compromise on pricing for the first set of customers is what I would say.
All right. And the next question is, how do we ensure that the customer stays on a sustained basis and comes back? How do we retain those early customers?
See, it really, if you're solving the right problem, then they will be with you, right? Give them the right level of attention, solve the right problem. The churn in the customers is because either you're not meaningful to them, or your product is not working well, or the user experience is not good, or the environment in which it is deployed is not working well. There is some reason why they go away from you, right? And most importantly, you have to sell the right product to the right customer. If you go sell for example, if you go sell Porsche to a person who is very, very value conscious about how much they spend on gas, you have sold the wrong product to the wrong person, right? Because every time they take the car, they'll think 10 times as to how much gas it's going to guzzle, right? So I think hence it's very, very important to get the initial set of customers who you believe are the right customers. If they're not the right customers, they're going to walk away. There will be some amount of churn in any customer. There's no doubt about it. But you really have to minimize it, and to minimize it, all these factors become very important.
Right. So, and there's one last question that is, what will be the top 3 things that we need to know before going to a customer?
See, I think it is, I don't know. I cannot just say these are the top three things, right? Like I said, I've been telling in this talk from the beginning. You really need to understand the what problem your product is solving, and who are the right set of people for it, for which it is relevant, right? That is the key question that you have to answer. So you find that fit. That's what is called product market fit. That you have a product that is solving the right that is solving a problem, and you are going to find the right set of people for whom this is really a problem for which they are willing to pay you money. Okay, that is the key question you always need to ask yourself. You always need to be prepared for that particular question, and once you do that, I think you're in business, in my opinion. And that is a hard thing. I'm not saying it's easy. It's very, very hard to get the right product market fit, and many companies fall off when they get to the point, because the product they have developed is not addressing the right market, or not addressing the right problem, or not giving the right benefit, or is not designed well. So I mean, all these factors contribute to a company not doing well in terms of selling a product. You might have built a great product, I'm not saying that, but it doesn't fit what is required by the market. So I think hence having a pulse on the market at all point of time is extremely important. Never let your pulse of your customer, or your prospective customer, or the market you're selling into.
Right. We have one more question that just got posted, Mr. Naganand. What are the different ways to create trust other than involving the customers in our product development, development process of product development?
Yeah. See, trust is built when your product delivers on its promise, number one, and you are completely transparent with your customer, number two, because every customer knows that there will be mistakes, right? The question is, how do you handle whenever there's a mistake? I think that is how trust is built. You have to stand up and own your mistakes, rather than deflecting the queries or saying, oh, this happened, that happened. Not give excuses. I'm a strong believer in being transparent, in being honest, and in having high integrity, and ensuring that you follow up on your promises. See, all these things build a trust. It's not just the product, it is the interaction, it is their belief, it is their integrity that they believe you have. All these things contribute to trust, right? So it is hence it is a very, very difficult thing to build trust. Trust is built over a period of time. Trust is never built overnight. So it's an ongoing process. I think stay very high with respect to integrity. Be very proactive. Be honest, and stick to your promises. The trust is lost immediately when promises are made and they are broken. Left, right, center.
Right. So, Mr. Naganand, just two more questions, which are not really, directly addressing to the customers, but more on the investment front. One is it important to set a matrix for investment readiness level? And a related question was, how do you create valuation for initial investors? And should startups look at crowdfunding?
So I'm not a big fan of crowdfunding, only because you get too many people on your cap table, and as you want to raise institutional money, it becomes harder and harder. Crowdfunding is a perfectly valid way to raise money if you're not looking for institutional round, because that is one thing, number one. And number two is so in terms of finding the investor pitch, right? So you always need to have a pulse on investment, but you need to know what is the reason you're raising the money. There's no point in raising money if you don't know how to spend it, or if you don't require that money. So my thesis is, never raise money when it is not required. But you should not raise money when you know that money can help you grow faster, right? So hence I think the founding team or the founder should always have a good understanding of, if I raise more money, will it help me grow faster, right? Then go ahead and raise it. If you're raising money and you're just going to keep it in the bank, don't dilute. Okay, you try and do your best to basically get the maximum out of what you have. And sometimes it is good to not to have too much cash in the market, because if you have too much cash in your bank, because if you have too much cash, you try out too many things, and you're fiscally irresponsible. And I've seen many companies go down because they lose track of what they're doing when they have too much money. So I think hence I'm a guy who believes in deep focus, in making sure that whatever you pick, you solve those things right, you make enough revenue, and then as you start to expand, look at the adjacent markets, and then invest in those adjacent markets, intelligently, and raise money for those things. So always understand how much money is required for you to grow at the rate you want to grow, and raise only that money.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Nagaran. I think with that, we have taken all questions. And in case anybody has any follow-on question, you can always write to FICCI. And, thank you so much, Mr. Nagaran, for joining us today. And, this session was very informative, very well received by the audience. So thank you once again.
My pleasure, and thanks for everybody for listening in. And I hope I was able to say some things that will have an impact in your startup journey. And do reach out if you have any other further questions. And thanks, IT, thanks for hosting and having me on this session.